So this hive has started to swarm, and as you can see, the bees are climbing up the face of the hive before they take off into the air. And as you can see, they're quite busy up in the air at the moment, all around me. And what I have to do now is just keep an eye to make sure that we find where they settle, and then I can pop them into a box. So I've come back out to show you just how many bees are now outside. As you can see, most of the bees that will make up the swarm have actually already exited the hive. There's fewer bees launching themselves off the front of the hive now. At the moment, they're just circling and they're looking for a place to settle. I'm really hopeful that they'll go for this magnolia tree that's right under them, but maybe that's being a little hopeful. Anyway, if they do settle on a lower bush, it's going to make it so much easier to catch them shortly. As you can see, the bees have settled into one cluster on a magnolia tree that's only a few meters from their original hive. They're on the outer edges of the magnolia, which should make it easier to pop them into a basket or a box. We're thinking of putting this particular swarm into the Flow Hive that we've bought, so that should be really good, a kind of experiment for us. As you can see, the swarm is quite large. I'd say there's at least 25,000 bees in this cluster, and they seem healthy and happy. I'm hoping they're going to stay in this location for at least an hour, so I've got time to prepare the equipment to capture the swarm. It being quite low, I could probably do most of this solo, but it'd be quite good to do it with somebody else and record it. As you can see, there's a little bit of a hollow here between the bees, where they're actually on two different major branches of the magnolia. As I've mentioned before, while they're in swarm, the bees are actually very non-aggressive. They're quite safe. They're full of honey. They've got nothing to protect. They're just out to look for a new home. So yes, there's a bee there with pollen on it. And to use the Flow Hive has meant that a lot of our normal beekeeping equipment doesn't actually work. So I was waiting for the equipment to come in from Lincoln University and to try and catch the swarm then. Unfortunately, it's taken some time and the bees decided that it was time to move location, so I had to do a very quick drop into the Flow Hive box in order to ensure the queen didn't go anywhere. Now, I think the bees that are starting to get busy around this area are trying to find the queen, but she's been dropped into the box. And since our escape lids and all of our other equipment don't fit this non-standard size box that the Flow Hive comes with, I've had to create a mocked up escape lid. I'm really hoping I've managed to catch the queen and put her below the plastic excluder that's sized to fit this hive. But only time will tell, and I can't quite tell at the moment from the way the bees are moving whether they're going in or trying to get out. Anyway, more on that later. Fortunately, it looks like my attempts to try and get the bees to go into this box aren't successful, because it's apparent that they're more coming out than going in. There's a new cluster forming, and I have a suspicion that maybe if the queen is out, she's there, or they've just gone to where her scent was last. Either way, the queen is somewhere in this area, either in the cluster or underneath the queen excluder in the box. I had been a little bit worried that the bees were actually escaping and hadn't actually managed to catch the queen. But I checked inside the box itself, and although the numbers had been leaving, there was still quite a number in there on the right hand side of the box from the perspective I was looking. And I feel, because I've had to cobble this kit together, that the plastic excluder was actually not allowing the queen scent to disperse very well. So I shook the cluster that had formed back onto the top of the box, and as you can see, the bees are now behaving appropriately, trying to spread the queen's odor. So I'm fairly certain that I have in fact got the queen inside the box, and it's just a case of encouraging the remaining bees to pop in rather than leave that area. This is of course a fairly tenuous kind of experiment that I'm doing here, because the original hive is only a few meters away, and some of the bees that got confused have actually gone home back to their original hive. As you can see, the bees are actually doing the whole flapping dance around the entryway, flapping their wings and dispersing the queen's scent so the other bees know where to go. The girls are almost all in now, so that's a really good sign. Soon we'll have to bundle this up and move the box and get her ready to be settled in a new location. But I'm fairly certain I did manage to catch the queen under the queen excluder, so this is a very good sign, and I suspect almost all of the swarm will be inside the box in the next half hour or so. All sealed and ready to go, and just putting the Flow Hive into the trailer, and we're going to move her to the biohusbandry unit to settle in. Now moved the bees to the biohusbandry unit at Lincoln Uni. This will be a temporary arrangement while we let them settle into their new hive, and then they'll move into a new home. As you can see, now that they've been opened up, they're keen to get out and about.